Hey, everybody, this is Mike Feldbauer coming to you from the Flag the Voice podcast studio. And today on our Road to Recovery podcast, I have a very special guest, a personal friend that has been part of our walk here in getting things done in the world of recovery, and that's Joe Mullins. Joe, welcome. Glad to have you with us.
Mike, thank you for having me on the show.
Well, we go back a ways. Originally, Joe knows that I was helping Pastor Charles Solano in opening the Open Door Reentry and Recovery Ministry. And I tell people at one point in time, Pastor and I, who were both administrators, it was like having two women in the same kitchen. And we bang heads once in a while. And Joe came along, and we found out of his history in the world of recovery and what he was trying to do to awaken our community, what's going on. And he kind of resolved some of the issues that Pastor and I were having together, put us back together, and then the three of us started working together to see what we could do to help in our community. And that was a great time. And I always tell people when they talk about my support for Joe while he was in the political arena here, he was one of the few people in the whole political arena that actually cared about helping people that had mental illness, the homeless situation, and certainly people in the world of recovery. So that's why I backed him. That's why I supported him. And that's how we became friends.
Yeah, I've always appreciated that, Mike. And, it was a very scary time. One time, just to tell the story before we met, I ran for office in Georgia, and I had a guy on the radio similar to Flagler Live, just a blogger that personally made it his vendetta to attack me, said because I didn't come and ask him to run that he would not support me. So he brought up a lot of my, challenges that I had in my life for recovery, things that got me to recovery. And I remember knocking on doors, and I was scared to death to knock on the doors at that time because I said, somebody's going to open the door and they're going to know what I went through. They're going to know that I did drugs. Oh my God, they're going to know that I did cocaine. Yeah, I said cocaine. I couldn't say it back then, though. I'd always be quiet. And I said, well, I did other things too. And today, and what I learned from working with you guys is own it. But I remember a very big mentor of mine, Ron Cross, who was a county commissioner, said, Joe, you didn't win this election. I just don't think your past is going to allow you to escape it and be able to do something like this. You might have to look for something else. Play the tape forward. I come to Flagler. I meet you guys. I'm talking. I'm going around knocking on doors. And I realized in my recovery, I was in the era where people were very ashamed to come out and admit they needed help. That was part of the tool that the devil used to keep you in recovery, to keep you in abuse, because you're scared to look at another man and say, hey, I need help. I got a problem. And I can't control it. So you're scared of it. So when I went through treatment, I said, if I'm going to survive, half the staff said that I would not make it a year in recovery. They just said, he's not going to make it. This guy's going to be dead. First of all, he's done too much, and I did an extreme lot. I mean, I was one of those that if you ask me to do something, I'm going to go full speed and do it 100 times more than anybody else is doing it. So I did a lot. And I remember them telling me, one guy sat down with me and he said, Joe, the only way you're going to make this work is you're going to have to do the exact opposite of what you did when you did drugs. I was really good at hiding it. I was really good at not telling people. I was really good at disguising it. So I thought it was my own world. I mean, people knew I was a wreck. They knew something was going on because I wasn't reliable. But I took that mentality and I said, you know what? If darkness makes my addiction stronger, lightness bringing it to light will make it weaker. And I apply that. And when I ran for office because of you and Pastor Solano, I'd have people, I'd knock on those same doors. And when they come to them, they go, well, I read a lot about you. And because the bloggers started attacking. And I looked up and I remember telling one of them one time, I said, I've read that stuff too. And I think I'm going to go with that version because I'm 8 years in recovery at the time. I said, I'm 8 years in recovery. And I said, it probably was worse than what they're saying. And he started laughing and he said, I like you. You own this. And I said, well, I got no choice. I did it. I own it. And it's who I am.
We have another organization in our community, a young lady who's been in recovery for quite a while now herself, and she runs a little business that says, sealed lips destroy.
Yeah.
And that's the whole thing that you're talking about. We've got to get out and let the community know what's all about. We've got to encourage others that are in the world of recovery. We have to go change the attitude of the public. You know, one of the biggest things that we work on in the drug court program and as the Drug Court Foundation works is trying to change those attitudes, okay? If they kept telling you, Joe, that you're going to be nothing, that's it. You're going to be just a bum. You're going to be a crook. You're going to do everything wrong. After a while, that's all you hear. That's what you become. We got to do the opposite. You know, medically, and it took me a long time to understand these things too. Medically, addiction is a disease. Now, do we treat other people in disease with that same? No. The reason we treat people in addiction with that kind of bad attitude is because they get themselves in trouble with the law to get what they need to keep going because they don't have a way out. No one's helped them get out. Now we need more people to help them get out. And when we do that, when we change our attitude, I tell the public, I say, we need your help. I need your support. That support can come money. It can come physically. You can offer a gift to help people that you have some kind of skills. But the biggest gift that you can do is change your attitude. And you change the attitude by understanding why people get into what they're into. Okay? I don't think you've ever heard it. And I know in the 13 years that I've been involved in doing this, I've never heard of one addict say that's what I wanted to become.
No. As a matter of fact, I did not want to do that, and I fought hard, and I remember waking up every day going, God, please take this away from me, and crying, but I didn't understand how to do it. I didn't understand that it was an addiction. I thought it was free choice, and I kept saying, well, I keep making the free choice. I didn't realize that I had a medical issue of ADHD. I started doing cocaine that calmed me down, and it made me relax and feel normal. And after I did it a certain time, it would turn around and make me wiry. I remember going into treatment and the guy said, well, you're using cocaine as a drug to calm your ADHD. And I said, I am? He goes, yeah. I said, well, what do people do? He said, a lot of people take Adderall. I said, oh, good, I can take Adderall. He goes, no, more people are in here and addicted to Adderall than they are cocaine. And I said, what do I do? And he taught me things like mindfulness, calming, going out, staying productive, being transparent. So, you know, half the staff said Joe Mullins is not going to be able to stay in sports and entertainment and remain sober. He's going to parties, he's going to events, he's going to baseball, football, basketball, concerts where everybody's drinking like mad. He's not going to be able to stay sober. I remember going to a Lady Antebellum debut that I was involved in when I worked with them while I was in recovery. The doctor looked at me and said, try this Antabuse. And I said, well, what is Antabuse? He said, well, if you take it and you drink, it makes you soil your pants. And all I know is I went to that event and I saw the alcohol all around me. I had just been 30 days since I had my last drink. And I looked up and all I thought about was, I cannot do that in my pants here. If everybody I'd be embarrassed. So whether it does it or not, it sold it me mentally. And I turned around and realized at that point, I needed to be transparent. So when I go to events and concerts, and I've remained 14 years sober in one of the biggest party atmospheres that you can do. But how I do it is I tell people all around me, I'm in sobriety, I don't drink, and I don't want to do that. And they become my biggest advocates to help me defend myself from people coming up and going, come on, Joe, have a drink with us, buddy. I mean, you think about it, Mike. If you go to work at a courthouse and you have alcohol on your breath, something's wrong with you.
You betcha.
If I go to work and I don't have alcohol on my breath at a sporting event, something's wrong with me. So I was set up for a big challenge. But by being transparent, having friends and accountability people like you, Pastor Solano, being open, talking, I've been able to come out and win an election after I went through addiction. I've won 3 more elections since then. I was Trump's, people don't realize it, I was Trump's Republican delegate voted on by the region. I was his voted delegate for 2020 and 2024. I also have been offered appointments to federal positions that I've looked at. all of this with a past that people said, if I came out and admitted it and asked for help, I'd lose everything.
The thing, I think, the biggest thing that most people listening, hopefully listening to this, that are going through what they're going through and afraid to be open and honest about it is that you're not hiding anything except from yourself.
Yeah.
And I relate back to my problem, which was cigarettes. 2 packs a day. I quit 6 times, relapsed 6 times, and every time I relapsed, I'd lie about it. Now, if you lie about relapsing and smoking, you're not doing anything because you stink. Okay?
Right.
The whole world knows about it.
That's like getting pulled over and saying you're not smoking pot when the aroma comes out. You can't hide pot.
No.
You can't hide that smell.
So there's a benefit to not lying, not putting yourself in that position. And once you learn, and it doesn't come easy, as you will know, it doesn't come easy to be outward in letting everybody know what you've been through, done. But then it becomes easier and easier, and it becomes very effective in helping others. And that's what we're all supposed to be about. Whether you're in addiction or in recovery or whatever's going on, we're all supposed to be helping people. That's who we're supposed to be for. That's what God wants us doing. So the closer we get into where we are reaching back and helping others through whatever they're going through because of whatever we've been through, the experiences we have, is all a plus. The AAs and NAs, they have their place. But, okay, that anonymous part has to get to a certain point where it's no longer anonymous. You got to be out there because how are you going to help being totally anonymous? You can't.
You can't. Your addiction loves that. And I used to tell people, they go, are you a friend of Bill? And that was the code word to see if you were in recovery. Mm-hmm. And I'd look up and go, no, I'm a child of God. And God's forgiven me for this. I've forgiven myself. And we're moving on. And I want to help people. And when I ran for office, one of the biggest things that I said is we'd bring recovery to light here. We had a massive homeless problem here behind the library. I went in, opened that up, showed it to people. And I remember people saying, well, this is their choice. And I said, no, their decision-making is what's got them in the situation they're in. They need help. I said, I was given free choice, and it almost killed me. I needed help. And I remember the day the blogger decided he didn't like me anymore. I had a Bible sitting on the dais, and he came up to me and he said, you can't have that here. And I looked at him and I said, hey, man, I used to pick and choose where I put God in my life. And I used to say, okay, he can be here during this time, but he can't be here during my sporting events, be here during, matter of fact, Monday through Saturday, I didn't need God. I had my own agenda and I was partying. Matter of fact, I was embarrassed and ashamed to have God because what I was doing. On Sunday, I'd go in and repent and I'd say, okay, give me all of it back, God, and start it all over again. Well, that doesn't work that way because you're not genuine. You're not doing it. But I remember having that Bible there and he said, well, you need to move it. And I said, listen, you don't want to know me where I pick and choose to have this Bible in my life. That guy is not a good guy to know. It's not a fun guy to know. It's not a good person. And I said, if you want some stories, you'll get some stories at that point. But I said, you'll also get some things that make you go, holy cow, I'm staying away from him. And I said, this Bible is very crucial. It's more of a sentimental thing to me to be able to know that when I look at it, I've got to live with God watching me. And I've also got to play that tape forward. I got to think about what my action this moment does, what impacts it's going to have 6 months, a year, or 2 years down the road.
You also have that ability to look at that book and say, God help me.
Yeah. And it's isn't it crazy how 3,000 years later, this book is still answering problems that we deal with? I mean, we got all this technology, all this advancement. But we can't solve the problems that the Bible solves. There's no other way to solve it but go to that Bible.
Yeah, I kid with people all the time. I said, I've been in business for over 50 plus years myself. And I said, it's the best business manual that you can do. I said, it can't teach me math. And somebody says, well, some of the numbers, they can teach you some, but it can't teach me math, but it can teach me all the principles, how to live up to it, how to guide my business, because it's all there. Okay, you don't need another book.
Yeah, it's if you think about it, that book for 3,000 plus years has been answering the questions that man continues to bring up. It's never gone obsolete. Pagers, we've seen disc players, we've seen CDs, we've seen pagers, we've seen telephones all go obsolete. All this technology go obsolete, but that Bible still stands strong as today as it was back then.
You're 100% correct. And I'm hoping that it gets stronger and stronger because I know it will help anybody. Okay? It's one of those things. I mean, I'm outspoken when it comes to that issue. I read through the Bible and I see the stories, both old and new, of salvation, of lives being saved, destruction being restructured. I see Jesus healing people that could never be healed, yet we still have to tell people you can be healed of addiction, because a lot of the support organizations say no, you can't. You always have to be in that. Yes, if he can raise the dead, I think he can heal an addiction.
Absolutely.
It doesn't happen overnight in most cases. I do tell the story that one of my good friends up north, he was terrible. I mean, he was drinking, drugging, just running out on his wife, all these kinds of things. And it got to a point in time in his life, I don't know what triggered it, he was in the hospital for something else. He was watching some Christian TV program, and he gave his life to Christ. That was the last day he had any drugs, any alcohol, or any device action. It happened to him overnight. Now, that's the unusual time, okay? Because it takes time to get bad. Sometimes it takes that same time to get good. But it can happen either way. God healed them immediately. Jesus healed them then, and then he healed some as they went. The healing process is going to be there. You got to want it. You got to accept it. You want it and you accept it, it's there and it's available to you.
You know, it reminds me of 100, the road out here. Not 100, I'm sorry, US 1. And it's like starting in St. Augustine and you're going all the way to Volusia and you're coming through our county and you're running down that road. And every day you're just running down that road and you're exhausted. When I finally surrendered and got in the chariot that God had kept sending me to pick me up and keep me from running down that hot, overgrown vegetation road that was tearing my life apart, the best feeling in the world was when I surrendered and I said, okay, it's done. It's done. It was like getting off. Just, I challenge anyone, walk in the middle of summer down US 1 and see how far you get before you want somebody to pick you up or you want some water being God's choice, and you're using whatever to get you there. It was the best feeling of relief when I finally had something that I could rest in. And I realized I didn't have to play God anymore. I didn't have to solve my own problems. I didn't have to get frustrated because I couldn't solve those problems. I didn't have to get mad at myself and call myself a failure. Those things all ended for me when I went up and did it. Also, when people said, hey, your last election that you had in Flagler, you didn't win. I go, that wasn't me. That was God. I knew that was coming. I felt it. I felt God was pulling me for a different purpose. But as the typical addict I am, I don't want to listen to God. I want to do it my way. And I wanted to stay in there and I had my own plan. And I can't tell you how wonderful things have been since that moment. So anytime you feel like you got failures or you failed something, you got to remember those are setups. You're getting set up to do something very big. And I love, just like our shows, getting out there, getting the voice, getting the people out there. The Joe Mullins show would not be what it is today had it not gotten that kind of attention with a crazy Ferrari video. But
I wasn't going to bring it up.
No, but I own it. I don't have a problem. Listen, hide that video would be like me hiding that I'm in recovery from drugs and alcohol. It was a part of what happened. And when you look at it, you go, how did something so innocent get spun so around? Well, that was God. God was trying to direct me and get my attention to move me to a different place. And I was very comfortable sitting where I was. And when I moved, I realized greater things were in store.
I think you're right. And we talked off air before we got started about some of this stuff here. And so it's been for me for a long time that I learned that being a volunteer like I am now and not being in office, though I was offered also like you to run for office here, I said, no, and they said, why? I said, because I can be more effective in our community, not sitting up there and having to deal with what you got to deal with. I can deal with the actual issue. I don't have to worry about whether my friends next to me or on either side of me are agreeing or disagreeing. I can point out what I believe is true and factual, and this is why I'm sticking to what I'm sticking to. And I think overall, I learned that years and years ago. I left IBM in 1969, and I went to become a youth director at the YMCA's. I had been a volunteer there for years, okay, but I thought having a career there was really kind of cool. So I took a couple of jobs as youth directors, one out in North Dakota, one in Connecticut, as a youth and camp director for the YMCA's. But again, the pressures, even there within those organizations, okay, were terrible. And I finally realized, you know what? I could be more effective in the communities that I'm trying to help if I'm not getting paid by that community to do it. So I went back into the corporate world and back into the volunteer world. And again, time and time again, was able to be more effective in that area. And now that I've been retired, that's pretty much almost a full-time thing. Getting in there, some people call me the county antagonist. And my definition of an antagonist is if you see something that's wrong, no one else is doing anything about it, and you have that capability, step up and do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So many people with this disease wanted to turn their head and not care and say, oh, this is my brother or my family member, there's nothing I can do, and they pretend it wasn't happening, or they blame it away of free choice and he's doing it and he's just going to be. They did not. You wouldn't do that to somebody that came out and said they had cancer. You wouldn't criticize them and ridicule them because they're struggling from cancer. You wouldn't do that to somebody that comes out and says they've got burned or something like that. So what it is, people like you and the programs like the Drug Court Foundation. When I was in office, I encouraged a step further. I got the judges to start to go to AA meetings so they could understand the people, because in their minds, they were going, well, we're going to punish them still. And they thought the punishment would happen. I said, buddy, the punishment, they don't even care. They don't care. You think they care what you do to them? Look at what they're doing to themselves. Look at what they're doing to their family. They just want an out. They want it to stop. And I said, if you put them in jail, it stops. If they die, it stops. Well, I don't want to go to jail, and I didn't want to die. So I said, I want to find out about this third thing called treatment, called recovery. And it's worked well, and I didn't have to exercise. I was trying to die. I mean, I was doing a tremendous amount of drugs before I went in. Tremendous. It had gotten so big. It was unbelievable. I remember my counselor looked up and said, usually we increase when you tell it. And he goes, I'm scared to do that with you. You'd be dead. You realize you're here today. And I said, I'm lucky, aren't I? And he goes, no, you're not lucky. You're blessed by God. He said, this isn't luck that kept you here. This is God. There's a bigger purpose for you. And I had been doing so much, I just wanted it to stop. And I didn't care how it stopped. But because of people like you, programs like the Drug Court, which I didn't get to go through, but I got to work with quite a bit, because I kept myself inside. I wasn't going out and getting arrested. I was scared to death. I always justified. I'm not a problem with drugs because I haven't been arrested yet. So I made sure I didn't. It was silly how I did it. And also, cocaine wasn't bad because I'm not doing crack yet. So I kept cocaine as a better option. And it overtook my life and almost destroyed me. But recovery, I'll tell people this and say this, recovery didn't end my addiction. It helped me figure out what my addiction was and how to manage it. I still battle with it at times. I still have trouble. I still fight. I still go into the addict me. I don't have to do the drugs and alcohol. The drugs and alcohol were the symptoms of the real problem. The real problem was my mental state. And if I don't keep myself mentally healthy, then I fall back into that.
Right. And it's so easy to fall back, and we know the dangers of falling back. More people overdose and die when they fall back.
Can you imagine fentanyl back then when
oh my
we were
God,
Can you imagine fentanyl cigarettes when you were smoking, not knowing if a cigarette you picked up had fentanyl? I'm scared to death to ever think about going back to it.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. It really is crazy. And we're getting to a point in what's going on here. We have to awaken more people. The key word for me and our organization is reduced stigmatism.
Right.
Okay? And I tell people, and if I mentioned it earlier, I forgot, I said, you can help us. I need your money. I need your time. I need your expertise. But the easiest way that you can help the recovery community is just understanding what brought the addict to where he is, okay? Know that was not a goal, and it was to cover pain that didn't get covered up in whatever other manner. Change your attitude. Change our attitude toward the people that are sick. And like you said, We don't criticize those people that have cancer. That's not it. That's only because they don't get arrested for having cancer. So there's an attitude. And Hollywood doesn't make movies making
No,
out
they
the addict,
romance
making
the
the
drug
addict
addiction.
out to be the worst
Yeah.
person in the entire world.
All right.
So I say, you want to be part of the problem, part of the solution. The inexpensive, no cost to you part of the solution is getting a better understanding of what addiction is all about and helping to reduce stigmatism. That will help more people that are in addiction get out of addiction. When you stop pointing at them and saying, this was your choice. Now, you don't choose to become an addict. You might make a bad choice in trying something that had an effect on you because you were in such pain mentally or physically. And a friend come up and says, try this, it'll help you. And all of a sudden it helped you, like you said. And then it helped you more and more. And then after a while it wasn't helping you. You just couldn't do without it. Because
That's how it started with me.
Yep.
So a friend came up and said, this will numb the pain. And then next thing I know, had so much pain, and there wasn't enough drugs in the history in the area to numb all the pain that I was going through. And it just made it worse.
Yeah. Well, we're coming to an end for today, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to have you back again and talk some more about this as we move forward in our community, because we still have a lot of work to do here in Flagler County when it comes to this. And to let the people get to really know who you are, not who they think you are. Okay? You didn't come with a Ferrari today, did you?
No.
Okay. I'm just double checking. That's, there's so much more. And I got several arguments with people about it. But you have a legitimate, honest story that will help people. And we need to get that story out even more and more.
Well, I appreciate
So again, Joe, I thank you for being with us today. So again, folks, this is Mike from the Flagler County Drug Court Foundation on the Road to Recovery podcast saying, have a listen, have a look, share it with your friends. Our community needs to know more about what's happening and that there is hope. Like you see in the background here, there is hope for those who are suffering in the world of addiction. So the world of recovery is real. So again, thank you. We'll look forward to seeing you again. Have a great day.